How could he? Elena kept remembering her husband. Why didn't he consult with me? For the first time in the 6 months since her husband's passing, Elena thought poorly of him. And she had a reason, a big one. She was sitting at the notary's office and couldn't understand a thing. The notary himself realized that the widow was not comprehending what she had heard, and he repeated everything clearly and distinctly a second time. Even sympathy flickered in his eyes, which was uncharacteristic of his profession. The woman was unlucky, what else could be said? Meanwhile, her mother-in-law was completely satisfied. Elena left the office alone, not waiting for her former relative. She knew what she would say. The only apartment where Elena, her husband, and their son lived actually belonged to her husband's mother. They bought it during the marriage, but for some unknown reason, he registered it in his mother's name. Elena had lived in this apartment for almost 10 years. She had carefully chosen the wallpaper, the furniture. Every corner pleased her, everything was done with love. Their son was already 14, but his grandmother was indifferent to him. And the fact that her daughter-in-law was left high and dry probably delighted the old woman immensely. Elena and Yuri got married back in college. The mother-in-law was dissatisfied. Her only son, a smart and bright boy, and suddenly some girl from a dormitory. But the son didn't listen to his mother, and the mother-in-law took on the role of an observer, ready at any moment to catch Elena off guard and insert her opinion about the worthless wife. Even at the memorial service, the mother-in-law, squinting cunningly, asked Elena where she planned to live. "My son took care of me." Elena didn't understand anything back then. Her only son had died in a car accident, and his mother kept repeating, "What will you live on? My son left a lot of money. Maybe you'll even remarry." But there was no money. Everything went on repairs, vacations, purchases. They lived a luxurious life. Now Elena didn't know where to seek help. Go to a lawyer? What would they say? The same thing. She has no rights to the apartment. Her husband's friend called, and Elena asked him for a meeting. He had already told her, "If you need help, reach out." Elena waited for him in a cafe. "You look good," Vadim complimented her. "So what happened?" "Nothing, except that I'm a widow and I have nowhere to live." Vadim didn't feel any better after she told him everything. He looked at her in such a way. She even wanted to leave sooner. You see, he didn't say a word that he had registered the apartment in his mother's name. Vadim didn't react at all. "I think you're exaggerating." "Talk to her, after all, he's her only grandson. She needs no one, especially us." "I think you always had money." "What kind of apartment is it that you have nothing left?" "The apartment is nice, big, on the embankment." Ensured a decent old age for his mother, Vadim smirked. "Why did I turn to him?" thought Elena. He doesn't need my problems. They had joint business with her husband, and now what can he help with? "How can I help?" Vadim responded immediately. "I need to get a job." "And who would hire you? Do you know computers?" "Of course," Elena quickly replied. "Don't panic," Vadim covered Elena's hand with his. "We'll figure something out." His eyes gleamed unpleasantly. Elena pulled her hand away and shivered. "Sorry, I distracted you from your business, don't see me out, I'll get there myself." She walked down the street, angry at herself for turning to Vadim. It seemed like she was complaining and waiting for some help. Got used to relying on a man for everything, living behind her husband's back. She had to get used to living differently. Her son was at a summer camp. Boxes with things were piling up in the apartment. Her mother-in-law called. "Vacate the apartment, I'm going to sell it." Elena was overwhelmed with numbness. She sat there without turning on the light. Gloomy thoughts caught up with her. What should she do now? For the first time in her life, she thought about those poor souls who voluntarily leave this life. Something broke inside her. She'd have to go to the dacha. Her husband bought a house to be demolished in the village, bought it for the land, wanted to build a big cottage. Now, if they sold this plot, the money wouldn't even be enough for a room. Apparently, they'd have to live there. She wouldn't get a job, the apartment had to be vacated. She recalled 15 years of married life and realized that she knew little about her husband. His life outside the home was closed to her. He didn't tell her anything about his work, business, money. And why did he buy the apartment in his mother's name? Was he planning to divorce her? The next day, Elena went to the village. The journey took 2 hours. She barely found the house, opened the gate, and stepped inside. She entered an overgrown garden. It smelled of leaves and smoke from a neighbor's bathhouse. Ahead was the dark silhouette of the house. It seemed alien and unnecessary to her. A branch crunched underfoot, and Elena flinched. She froze, listening. It was already getting dark. She entered the house. It seemed to her that someone had been there. Candles on the table, empty cans of preserves. She could hardly imagine how she and her son would live here. Indignation was boiling inside her. What did her husband want, buying this shack? Let him now admire what he did to his family. Let him see how she stands in the middle of a strange abandoned house. She felt like crying, but then she pulled herself together and even managed to light the stove. By night, the house had some semblance of a home. It was warm in the hut. Elena even opened the windows. The smells of trees wafted from the garden, and from another window, there was a view of the river. How nice! The next day, Elena went back. She felt strange changes in her soul. The fear was gone. Now she was planning her life. She needed to find a truck, move things. And then invite her mom, who lived in another city. It would be even better if they lived together in this house. It's no longer mine, she thought detachedly, opening the door to the apartment from a past life that wasn't hers anymore.